Hey guys, Breg here, and today I'm going to be telling you about how World of Warcraft got me a job. Well, kind of got me a job. It at least helped in getting me the job, which is kind of awesome. So, a bit of background, I was applying for some tutoring jobs or private teaching jobs around London. So, a bit of part-time work would have been good, and I got an interview with these guys. So I show up to the interview, things are going okay, nothing too amazing. The guy starts looking at my CV. Don't know if you have CVs in America, probably something like it anyway. But it's just what you have, like all your results on, all of your qualifications, all your past experience, and then at the end you usually put a bit of your like extracurricular activities slash what you like to do in your spare time. Anyways, at the bottom of this extracurricular page on my CV, it has a bit about my YouTube channel. Well, it literally just says, have my own YouTube channel where I post gaming videos. That's basically what it says. Anyway, this guy's obviously a gamer. And so he sees that and he immediately asks, hey, what gaming videos do you do? And I was like, oh, yeah, World of Warcraft videos. And he was like, oh, yeah, I used to play that. And from that point, the interview just changed, and we just started talking about WoW. It was really weird. It was really awesome, but yeah, it was so bizarre. And this guy was telling me like, oh yeah, I used to play in vanilla with my friends. He was like, oh, my parents only used to let me play a couple of hours a week, which we can all relate to when we were younger. And he was like, oh, but yeah, some of my friends were playing lows. They got to level 60 really quick, which was pretty impressive back in vanilla. And then they just started playing all the time, and they failed their exams because of it. And I was like, oh yeah, lucky them. And then he said, oh, you must be really good at the game if you're doing YouTube videos about it. And I was like, well, not really. I mostly do gold videos, like gold making. And then he was like, oh yes, I did economics at university. So suddenly I'm sitting here having an interview with someone who loves WoW, loves economics, so gold making and WoW he must kind of love as well. In fact, he told me he did, and he used to do that back in the day. Which was really kind of crazy. And yeah, when two people can relate to something so well in an interview setting, it makes the whole thing a lot more casual, a lot less stressful. You kind of connect with that person straight away. Obviously, I'm sure you guys would have experienced something like this in your lives. And yeah, from then on, the interview went really, really well. Talked a bit more about WoW, talked a bit more about the actual job, and got the job. Now, I'm not saying that I got the job because of WoW, but what I am saying is World of Warcraft has such a huge sort of cultural significance. And whilst currently there might not be as many people playing as in its absolute peak, though we really don't know, do we? We don't know the sub numbers. But I mean, you can imagine, can't you? What was it, a few years ago in like WoW's 10th anniversary, Blizzard was saying how like 100 million people had tried the game in terms of like made accounts. 100 million people. And that was what, like 3 years ago? 4 years ago almost? And if you then include the people who have heard of the game, you know, from the movie, or more than likely just from, you know, the game itself, like I say, it's got huge cultural value. There have been so many sort of parodies of it, so much news coverage of it over the years. It's one of the most influential games of all time. And if we were to hazard a guess over how many people had actually heard of the game, just heard of it, it's got to be at least 5 times the people who played it, possibly 10 times. There could be up to like 1 billion people who have heard of this game. 1 billion people. 1/7 of the entire global population. And then if you take out, say, the really younger kids and the much older retired adults that probably won't be doing something like an interview for you, and then all the other countries where they unfortunately don't even have access to internet as easily as we do. And then you look at, say, your country that you live in, and how many people have at least heard of the game in your country? At least around your age group, or at least within like 40 years of your age group, say. Plus or minus 40, or plus or minus 20, or whatever you want to look at it. What percentage have heard of World of Warcraft? It's got to be quite a lot, doesn't it? It's got to be. You know, we're not talking about 1 or 2% here. We're talking about like 10, 20, 30%, which is crazy. you meet someone in the street and there's a 20%, 25%, 30% chance they've heard of the game. You know, how many other games can you say that for? I'm not sure of any, maybe like Super Mario and then like the traditional arcade games. But apart from that, there's no other game that can come close to that. Even a game with a huge sort of recurrent player base, like League of Legends, say. League of Legends is way bigger than World of Warcraft, but in terms of people having heard of it, I bet there's more people who have heard of WoW than League of Legends. I mean, it's just obvious, every single gamer has heard of World of Warcraft, just like every single gamer has heard of League of Legends. But in terms of the non-gamers, which you then have to look at, I'm certain more of them have heard of World of Warcraft than League of Legends. Obviously, with League selling out stadiums and whatnot, it's becoming more and more popular, but even so, it's nothing compared to the sort of cultural significance of this game. And it's just amazing to me. I just kind of realised yesterday, after the job interview, how it's sort of filtered through into sort of everyday lives and the kind of consciousness of society, really. Now, I'm not suggesting you should bring up World of Warcraft in any job interview or anything like that you have all the time. I'm not saying that at all. But you can slip something into, say, your CV, because in most job interviews they do ask about your extracurricular stuff if you put it down. They're supposed to, that's why you put it down, because they're supposed to try and engage with you and make you want to join the company, and not just you want to join, like they want to make you join, because obviously they're looking for workers, that's why they're hiring. So they do want to kind of engage on a more personal level, and if you put something like play video games, watch football, whatever, you just list off a few things like that, and if they're a video gamer, they'll probably ask you, hey, what do you play? And if they are a video gamer and they ask you that, and you say World of Warcraft, they're going to at least know what it is, 100%. If they're a video gamer, they're going to know what the game is. And that's going to lead to a conversation. Or, you know, like I say, there's a pretty good chance, not an amazing chance, but there is a half good chance that they'll have even played the game. And that can lead to a very relatable interview, a very chilled out atmosphere, and something much more sort of relaxed than your usual job interview. Looking at the bigger picture here, World of Warcraft has such a huge audience and such a huge potential sort of player base, because its fan base, its past players, the people who have heard of the game, is got to be one of the biggest out of any video game there is, like I've said. So if they were to get one of the expansions just perfect, loads of people absolutely love, it encourages loads of players to come back, it encourages the new players, it encourages people who have heard of the game to maybe give it a try. If they can connect with all those different avenues, you know, they have a huge potential for growth, let alone retaining subscribers, but actually growth. In fact, thinking about WoW and jobs and stuff like that reminds me of this other time. A couple of summers ago, I was working in this mouthguard factory. You know, like sports players sometimes wear those mouth guards to stop them breaking their teeth. We were literally making those. It was horrible. Anyways, I didn't know many people there, and it wasn't the best atmosphere because I was only like a temporary worker, and a lot of the others were full-time. They all knew each other. Anyway, this guy I was working next to started talking to me one day, just asking like what I was into, what I wanted to do after university, all this kind of good stuff. Anyway, he obviously didn't really care about that kind of stuff. He actually cared about video games. And he wanted to find someone else who worked there who also played video games. So he randomly said, gonna go play The Witcher 3 when I get back. I think it was that. And I was like, oh, cool. I've seen some streams of that game, looks awesome. And he was like, oh, have you played it? And I was like, nah. And then he was like, oh, what games do you play? Then I told him again, World of Warcraft, and he was like, oh yeah, I used to play that back in Wrath. And then we had this massive conversation again about the game, about like what realm he was on, what he used to raid as, you know, his classes, what the game was like now, how he was thinking of coming back, because I think Legion had been announced but it hadn't been released yet, and everyone was getting hyped about that. He was thinking about coming back to the game. I don't know, I lost contact with him, I don't know if he ever did. But again, this is the kind of thing, I wasn't sure Blizzard were kind of telling the truth, or at least I didn't really believe Blizzard when they said there'd been 100 million players across WoW's lifespan. Again, this was a few years ago. But actually, thinking about it now, there's so many people who have played this game, just random people who I've come in contact with. And I mostly just sit in my room all day. I don't even come into contact with many people, but it really is incredible the reach that this game has. But anyway, the big question I wanted to leave you guys with is, have 1 billion people heard of this game? Have more? Have less? Do you guys think I'm being ridiculous? Remember, it's a huge game in China. The Warcraft movie was extremely popular. The game itself, extremely popular. Even if there's a lot of China that's very rural, probably doesn't even have access to internet or whatever, that they can't play it, they may well have at least heard of it because it's such a huge thing culturally in China. China's population is 1.4 billion. Even if a third of China have heard of the game, that's already like 450 million. Easily at least half the US has probably heard of it. And then we get across Europe, and if we're looking like that, there's easily 1 billion people who have heard of this game. I don't know guys, you tell me if I'm being crazy. I don't think I'm being that crazy. And one last thing to leave you on, it does make me feel a little bit sad, all this, because thinking about the number of people who have played the game and then stopped, and when I ask them why they stopped, they usually say something about, oh, got too busy, work schedule, job, kids, all that kind of old person stuff. I'm not saying you're old if you do all that, but you're not a kid anymore, you have to kind of grow up and you have to do those things, and people use that as a reason for quitting. So there are two things we can look at here. Is this a issue, and can World of Warcraft try and accommodate these people? I mean, it's already pretty casual friendly nowadays compared to what it used to be, so I don't know. Is that going to put people off? Is that going to bring more people back? And the second thing, if all of those people grew up and stopped playing, then why aren't the same percentages of the younger generation who have loads of time starting to play it? And there's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, the whole video game industry, genres have changed dramatically. But can World of Warcraft get back to that number of young people playing? I'm not sure, but there must be some room for change in that regard. Or do young people nowadays mostly prefer those instant gratification kind of games that WoW has even tried to bring in, but it's never going to be able to compare to the mobile market, to the sort of quick PvP market such as League of Legends, all that kind of good stuff. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks for watching this video. Let me know if you enjoy my kind of rambling talk kind of videos, and I may well do some more. And until next time guys, see ya.